And now to our first business story. Some economists have expressed worry about development in Parliament could heighten investor uncertainty about the direction of the economy. According to them, there are crucial fiscal policies that must be examined by Parliament and passed on time, but could be delayed by the disagreement between the two major parties, the National Democratic Congress and the New Patriotic Party, on who has the majority in the House. This days, one could send bad signals to investors and business seeking to operate in Ghana. Now, we are joined on Zoom by Associate Professor of Finance at the Andrews University in the USA, where the annual World Bank IMF opens today. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Great. How much of the damage could the happening in Parliament do to the investor confidence in Ghana's economy as a whole?
Thank you very much for your question, and good evening to you and your viewers. So, for every investor, you think of looking for a country that has good governance and stable governance at work. And good governance, the major element that's used to measure good governance is how functionary your institutions are working. And in governance, the three main functionaries are the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. These are known as the three-legged stool. So if you have one of the stool shutting down and refusing to work or collapsing, as it has happened in the case of Ghana, where the parliament says that they have suspended all sittings until when we don't know whether indefinitely or until the term of this parliament ends. It becomes a major challenge for investors because they see that laws-making bodies will not be in place, and there are only two legs that are going to work in Ghana, and this is not augur well for good governance. So in terms of lawmaking, and this is going to really affect the country. We know there are already some tax bills and government revenues agenda that must be handled. Also, the incoming of it for first quarter is also hanging. So this is really not good for Ghana, and it may jeopardize the gains we have, the confidence gain we had for some time now.
Prof, you touched on government revenue in some businesses in the House of Parliament. We're expecting the finance minister to present the budget in November. Do you think this development could impact the time, and what will be the likely implication, especially on the economy?
I mean, so if we don't have the appropriation bill passed for first quarter of 2025, it means that some major expenses will not be able to have the legal backing to honor them. We have our interest payment due for first quarter to Eurobond holders. This may, if we don't have Parliament to approve the budget for first quarter, it's going to put us back to the default state that where we were. This signal, as is happening, in bond rating agencies will be looking at it and saying that is Ghana going to default again? So that is one angle, because we don't have the legal backing. And also, would workers be able to receive their salaries? Another issue, because if the budget is not read, there's no legal backing. I know the government has some tax bills, tax waivers they want to get it passed and implemented. Businesses are waiting, and this keeps them in limbo, and it's going to affect major projects in the country. So these are some of the major challenges if you see Parliament not working. In terms of revenue collection, what happens to the accountability part? As Parliament suspends sitting, all the other subcommittees of Parliament are also not going to work. And we know that these committees are very important in bringing government agencies and ministries to question. We know, for example, the one chaired by Okujeto on governance, now they are not going to sit. We are not going to have someone to check the government, what they are doing with the current funds. We also have the accounting, the one in charge of reviewing the auditor's report, also not going to sit. So all these things are going to hang, and if it's not resolved immediately, it's going to affect accountability, and the perception of corruption is going to increase, which is going to affect the perception corruption index in the country. So the implication for this shutdown or indefinite suspension of parliament is very, very great. And as I said, it's one leg of the three-legged stool. And if it's not working, it means that the whole system is collapsed. And virtually that's what it means. That's why the Justice Department, as they work within the speed of light, last week must also use the same speed of light to make sure that they resolve the issue so that Parliament can come back to work.
Bro, some have said that because we are probably in election year, there's the need to ensure election-controlled expenditure ahead too. Some also have said that this might look good in terms of mitigating the over-expenditure during an election year. What do you make of that?
I mean, it's a major concern. Whatever government wants to spend must be backed by law. So government, I know they were trying to seek some authorization to use some contingency fund for a certain mitigation measure for people who have been affected by the changing weather in the northern part of the country. Now, they don't have the approval now, so they cannot spend. Anyone who goes ahead and spend can be jailed after all. So these are the implications. If a minister or someone goes and spends something which has not been approved, it's equal to causing financial loss to the state. So all the other ministries, everybody is going to sit and watch and see what's happened. And virtually, citizens will not get value for the reason why they voted for government, the reason why they voted for people to go into parliament to go and work.
Okay, Prof. Now to the IMF. Now to the IMF meeting, that's IMF World Bank meetings that is happening in Washington this week. We understand that the government will be engaging IMF officials on reforms undertaken so far. How crucial is this engagement, and what should we expect as a country?
So the signals we are picking is that after the review, the team has their report ready. The government is going to possibly defend if there are any questions that the executive board will want to ask. And that is why our ministers and his team must be there to come out with a defense or explanation. And this is very important because even though we have a pass from the team that came to Ghana, the authorization to release the next 360 million comes from the executive. And if they have any doubt that what the report, based on the report, they have any doubt, it is the duty of our team, the Ministry of Finance and his team to come out with explanations. So that is why this is very crucial for us to be able to receive the next tranche.
Prof, one of the key agenda on the table of global leaders at the meeting is to discuss how to fight poverty across the world, driven by rising debt, conflicts, and climate shocks. What hurdles do they have to cross when they sit behind the table?
So last week I was part of a team and we listened to the IMF boss. Their research points to a little bit decline in inflation targets. But there are major concerns. That's why we may, as the world, we may have to address it. We know there is also the Cold War, which is currently happening. There is a hot war, which is happening in between Russia and Ukraine. A hot war between Israel and Iran and their neighbors. The next fear is the issue of trade war. And if trade liberalization in terms of taxation and trade protectionists are not addressed, it is going to worsen the situation for countries that are poor or developing countries, where Ghana we come under, where we have about, according to World Bank, about 800,000 people living extremely poor in Ghana. So as the trade war deepens, it worsens development and also poverty in the world. And in effect, it widened what we term as the convergence theory criteria. The disparity between developed and developing world becomes so wild. And that is a major concern that we have to address. And that is what the IMF and the team in the World Bank are trying to come out with. How do we solve the issue of trade war? Because we don't want to also add it to what is happening in the world, which is the Cold War and the Hot War.
Professor Andrews William Pepa, we are most grateful for your time here on Business Live. Now, moving on, Ghana would this week seek to convince IMF that it has undertaken all the reforms and regulations in line with passing third program review. This will happen at the annual IMF World Bank meetings, which formally opened in Washington, D.C. today. George Wiafe is there and has more for us.
For Ghana, this annual IMF World Bank meetings present them a fine opportunity to close in with the management of the IMF when it comes to the recent third review that was passed while the staff was in Ghana to review the assessment when it comes to how Ghana has fared under the program. The IMF staff is supposed to take Ghana's report to its management, and then the board will meet on Ghana's situation maybe by the end of this month or in the first week of December 2024. We understand that if the board approves Ghana's program, then they will actually approve the disbursement of some $360 million that will hit Bank of Ghana's account the same week in December. But for Ghana, there are still maybe some check marks or boxes they have to tick and try and push the management of the board to ensure that they are indeed committed to the program. This annual meeting will offer Ghana an opportunity to actually follow up on all these concerns and ensure that indeed they are committed to the structural reforms and measures that they have to undertake under this fund program. It would also offer Ghana an opportunity to engage some bilateral partners, including the World Bank, and some disbursement that they are making to help restructure Ghana's economy when it comes to poverty alleviation and also supporting Ghana's energy sector. For some, this meeting is indeed the biggest gathering of all central bank governors, finance ministers, and all those who play in the financial sector in the global economy. What steps can they undertake to ensure that the economy is safe and ensure that the rising debt levels in most African countries can be minimized so that the shocks wouldn't be spread across? What about rising commodity prices, and how can member countries take actions to ensure that they really benefit from this? This is what some will call the biggest gathering of all those who matter in the financial space and the economic space to meet in Washington, D.C. to take actions to ensure the global economy is safe. For Ghana, it will be a big opportunity to engage all these partners so that in terms of recovery of Ghana's economy can be fastened or maybe faster than what they thought. From the IMF building in Washington, D.C., this is George Wiafe reporting for Joy Business.
So George Wiafe will be bringing us up-to-date information from the IMF meeting in Washington. Now moving on, cost of borrowing and cost of servicing other debts owed the IMF will reduce significantly from next month. This is because the IMF Executive Board has approved revised charges for member countries and other reforms. George Wiafe is still bringing us updates on this.
The IMF Executive Board to reduce the cost of borrowing and repayment terms couldn't have come at a better time when Ghana is currently on the program with the International Monetary Fund. This development will mean a lot when it comes to fresh disbursement and current servicing of debts that Ghana is doing with the fund. It will go a long way to reduce our cost of servicing our debt due to the IMF, especially at the time when we have actually undertook a debt restructuring program to try and reduce our debt servicing and also exposure as a country. For some, indeed, it has come at a good time, and it will mean a lot to countries like Ghana when it comes to servicing our debts due to the International Monetary Fund and even other fresh commitments that we might be getting from the International Monetary Fund in terms of our whole debt position and reducing Ghana's total debt stock due to the International Monetary Fund. From the IMF headquarters in Washington, D.C., this is George Wiafe reporting for Joy Business.
Now we have more business update for you right after this break. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Business Live. Now to more news. The Coffee Federation of Ghana is calling on government to invest in the development of coffee production, especially in cocoa growing areas, to serve as an alternative. According to Samuel Adimado, Vice President of the Federation, coffee has the potential to survive the El Nino and other harsh weather conditions, hampering the production of cocoa. Speaking at the inaugural Ghana Coffee Week, Mr. Adimado explained that supporting the sector will bolster the country's exporters and bring the insignificant foreign exchange revenue.
Our coffee market was valued at $127 billion in 2022 and is anticipated to grow at a compound annual rate of 4.7% from 2023 to 2030. In 2023, Ghana ranked 48th in global coffee production, producing about 7,680 bags. Organizations such as the International Trade Center and the European Union have been supporting trade groups and small businesses in the sector to boost production. Speaking at the inaugural Ghana Coffee Week, Samuel Adimado, Vice President of the Coffee Federation of Ghana, called for the development of coffee as an alternative to cocoa.
In the cocoa growing communities where temperature has become so high that all effort to reinstate the cocoa farm is not being successful, what are the alternatives? And we realize that you can easily grow coffee because the farming systems of coffee, the diligence that is required in cultivating coffee is almost the same as cocoa in terms of the food safetiness of it, preserving its integrity as a food, and then also ensuring that you produce a product that comes with its flavor.
Meanwhile, Paul Kwame Bafo, the national best coffee farmer for 2023, called on government to provide extension support to encourage coffee farming.
We are not getting extension advices. You know, our coffee was introduced to our part there by Cocoa Board somewhere in 2015. They introduced us to coffee. So all the coffee growing area in our Wenchi, they are also cocoa growing people because it was Cocoa Board who introduced us into the field. We grew the coffee, but Cocoa Board was giving only extension services to the cocoa people, leaving the coffee behind. You know, farmers who don't know much about the coffee in our area there, so most of them started cutting off their coffee because there was no extension services, and then the marketing too was problem.
Mazimu Mina, head of cooperation at the EU delegation to Ghana, emphasized the European Union's commitment to support Ghana's coffee value chain.
We've also established a collaboration with Cocoa Board to plant approximately 1 million coffee seedlings and improve the seedling management. We've been active in promoting local consumption and value addition. To this effect, we have provided capacity strengthening of coffee processors through workshops on coffee roasting, cupping, and coffee shop management to boost local processing and coffee consumption.
The Ghana Coffee Week aims to highlight the growth and potential of Ghana's coffee sector, increase awareness of the local and international coffee value chain, and showcase the work of the EU-backed business-friendly coffee project.
Indeed, all you need is a cup of coffee. Now, moving on, the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, Unido, has launched a 4-day capacity building program in Accra to improve technology and quality control in rice processing in Ghana. The training focuses on equipping laboratory technicians with skills in equipment maintenance and troubleshooting to boost rice quality. There is more in the following report. A development organization, Unido, has organized a capacity building program in Accra on maintenance and troubleshooting. We'll bring you that story later in a subsequent bulletin. Now moving on, the Association of Ghana Industries is making a strong case for an improvement in Ghana's macroeconomic indicators Chief Executive Sir Chum Akwabua says this could aid in sustaining the industry sector growth of 8.2% recorded in the second quarter of 2024. Speaking on Joy Business at the Inclusive Business and Green Business Forum, he called for a conducive business environment for small businesses to thrive.
Ghana Inclusive Business and Inclusive Green Business Forum is to identify companies with potential IB and IGB business lines and develop strategic recommendations for a multi-stakeholder program. Seth Chumakobo emphasized the need for more robust measures to promote local production.
So many factors contribute to it. The key part of it is macroeconomic stability. Normally, what happens is that when we have macroeconomic stability and businesses can predict the business environment in terms of the economic arrangement, it could be exchange rates, it could be inflation, it could be interest rates. If you have it in a certain stable manner, businesses can plan, and on the basis of that plan, they can invest. And as they invest, you see the numbers growing. So it is very important that we have stability, and I can say that if you compare this year to the recent previous years, this year has been reasonably stable until recently that we had a bit of the cedi depreciation coming in a little bit. Generally speaking, if you compare, it's been relatively stable. So for that reason, I'm not surprised that we are seeing growth. And this is what we've been talking about all the time. And let's have reasonable macroeconomic stability, a predictable environment, then people can do business. And when we do business that way, you see the growth happening. And the growth, when it happens, it affects everybody positively because our businesses can expand and employ more people. So this is what I think we are experiencing.
Team lead for CDC Consult, Babilo Mahama, stressed on the need to provide small businesses with incentives.
The incentives is still being discussed in terms of what will be the most. So we are designing that with our partners. So we've had meetings with development partners. We've had meetings with ministries. We had a meeting with Ministry of Finance last week, talking about how and what kind of incentives will be most appropriate. We have some suggestions or input from stakeholders when we had the stakeholder engagement in October.
The first Ghana Inclusive Business and Inclusive Green Business Forum is aimed at supporting green businesses across the country.
That'll be all for business here on Business Live. For more news, visit my job online for H-Class Business for more updates. My name is Winston Taki. Meet us at 8 p.m. for Prime Business. Goodbye for now.